Only one thing matters, one thing, to be able to dare. The more you succeed in loving, the more you'll be convinced at the existence of God and the immortality of your soul. I think the devil doesn't exist, but man has created him. He has created him in his own image and likeness. Above all, avoid falsehood, every kind of falsehood, especially falseness to yourself. Watch over your own deceitfulness and look into it every hour, every minute. I believe the best definition of man is the ungrateful biped. The world will be saved by beauty. The more incompetent one feels, the more eager he is to fight. To think too much is a disease. From 100 rabbits you can't make a horse. What would life be if we had no courage to attempt anything? Taking a new step, uttering a new word, is what people fear most. At first, art imitates life. Then life will imitate art, then life will find its very existence from the arts. Wealth is the number of things one can do without. Life is paradise, and we are all in paradise, but we refuse to see it. To go wrong in one's own way is better than to go right in someone else's. If God does not exist, then everything is permissible. Be the sun and all will see you. Man only likes to count his troubles, but he does not count his joys. To be in love is not the same as loving. You can be in love with a woman and still hate her. The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for. The best way to keep a prisoner from escaping is to make sure he never knows he's in prison. The darker the night, the brighter the stars, the deeper the grief, the closer is God. It is better to be unhappy and know the worst, than to be happy in a fool's paradise. Nothing in this world is harder than speaking the truth, nothing easier than flattery. If you want to overcome the whole world, overcome yourself. I gave up caring about anything, and all the problems disappeared. But how could you live and have no story to tell? He who masters the gray every day is a hero. I utter what you would not dare think. Anyone who can appease a man's conscience can take his freedom away from him. It is not the brains that matter most, but that which guides them, the character, the heart, generous qualities, progressive ideas. Only through suffering can we find ourselves. There is immeasurably more left inside than what comes out in words. Destroy my desires, eradicate my ideals, show me something better, and I will follow you. You will burn and you will burn out, you will be healed and come back again. What is hell? I maintain that it is the suffering of being unable to love. To love another person is to see them as God intended them to be. Everything passes, only truth remains. Right attitudes produces right action. The cleverest of all, in my opinion, is the man who calls himself a fool at least once a month. 100 suspicions don't make a proof. For broad understanding and deep feeling, you need pain and suffering. If everything on earth were rational, nothing would happen. Never mind a little dirt, if the goal is splendid. Nothing is easier than to denounce the evildoer, nothing is more difficult than to understand him. Deprived of meaningful work, men and women lose their reason for existence, they go stark, raving mad. It takes something more than intelligence to act intelligently. You can be sincere and still be stupid. Only the heart knows how to find what is precious. A society should be judged not by how it treats its outstanding citizens but by how it treats its criminals. Above all, don't lie to yourself. The soul is healed by being with children. The greatest happiness is to know the source of unhappiness. Talking nonsense is man's only privilege that distinguishes him from all other organisms. In the realist, faith is not born from miracles, but miracles from faith. The man who is happy is fulfilling the purpose of existence. To begin with unlimited freedom is to end with unlimited despotism. Taking a new step, that is what people fear most. Lying to ourselves is more deeply ingrained than lying to others. Yes, that's right, love should come before logic. Only then will men come to understand the meaning of life. I believe there is no one deeper, lovelier, more sympathetic and more perfect than Jesus. Luxuries are easy to take up but very difficult to give up. In sinning, each man sins against all, and each man is at least partly guilt for another's sin. There is no isolated sin. Compassion is the chief law of human existence. Man is sometimes extraordinarily, passionately, in love with suffering. Man has it all in his hands, and it all slips through his fingers from sheer cowardice. My soul bleeds and the blood steadily, silently, disturbingly slowly, swallows me whole. If there is no God, then I am God. The secret of man's being is not only to live but to have something to live for. Sarcasm, the last refuge of modest and chaste-souled people when the privacy of their soul is coarsely and intrusively invaded. Everything seems stupid when it fails. When reason fails, the devil helps. Let us be servants in order to be leaders. Much unhappiness has come into the world because of bewilderment and things left unsaid. The degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. To love someone means to see him as God intended him. I want to suffer and be purified by suffering. Happiness lies not in happiness but only in the attempt to achieve it. Everything will come in due course, if you have the gumption to wait for it. Every man needs a place to go to. What terrible tragedies realism inflicts on people. It's not miracles that generate faith, but faith that generates miracles. What man wants is simply independent choice, whatever that independence may cost and wherever it may lead. The fear of appearances is the first symptom of impotence. Perhaps I really regard myself as an intelligent man only because throughout my entire life I've never been able to start or finish anything. And if there's love, you can do without happiness too. Even with sorrow, life is sweet. I cannot understand why the world is arranged as it is. Suffering is part and parcel of extensive intelligence and a feeling heart. To love is to suffer and there can be no love otherwise. The death of a child is the greatest reason to doubt the existence of God. When he has lost all hope, all object in life, man becomes a monster in his misery. If you love everything, you will perceive the divine mystery of things. Life is what matters, life alone, the continuous, eternal process of discovering life, and not the discovery itself. If you can put the question, am I or am I not responsible for my acts, then you are responsible. But I always liked side paths, little dark back alleys behind the main road. There one finds adventures and surprises, and precious metal in the dirt. A single day is sufficient for a man to discover what happiness is. Hell is the inability to love. Killing myself was a matter of such indifference to me that I felt like waiting for a moment when it would make some difference. For all is like an ocean, all flows and connects. Touch it in one place and it echoes at the other end of the world. Nothing is more seductive for a man than his freedom of conscience, but nothing is a greater cause of suffering. Reality is infinitely diverse, compared with even the subtlest conclusions of abstract thought, and does not allow of clear-cut and sweeping distinctions. Reality resists classification. To be acutely conscious is a disease, a real, honest-to-goodness disease. Every man looks out for himself, and he has the happiest life who manages to hoodwink himself best of all. Truly great men must, I think, experience great sorrow on the earth. To cook your hare you must first catch it. For what is man without desires, without free will, and without the power of choice but a stop and an organ pipe? Realists do not fear the results of their study. The jealous are the readiest of all to forgive, and all women know it. Happiness does not lie in happiness, but in the achievement of it. They were renewed by love, the heart of each held infinite sources of life for the heart of the other. I swear to you, gentlemen, that to be overly conscious is a sickness, a real, thorough sickness. There is no subject so old that something new cannot be said about it. It all, maybe, most likely, indeed, might turn out for the best. No, evidently habit means a lot. The devil knows what habit can do to a person. The formula, 2 and 2 make 5, is not without its attractions. Besides, nowadays, almost all capable people are terribly afraid of being ridiculous, and are miserable because of it. There is only one thing that I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings. This is my last message to you: in sorrow, seek happiness. Man is a creature that can get accustomed to anything, and I think that is the best definition of him. Sorrow compressed my heart, and I felt I would die, and then... well, then I woke up. A just cause is not ruined by a few mistakes. To achieve perfection, one must first begin by not understanding many things. And if we understand too quickly, we may not understand well. I'm drunk but truthful. Life is in ourselves and not in the external. Intelligence alone is not nearly enough when it comes to acting wisely. If man has one good memory to go by, that may be enough to save him. To live without hope is to cease to live. Beauty is mysterious as well as terrible. God and devil are fighting there, and the battlefield is the heart of man. With love one can live even without happiness. A beast can never be as cruel as a human being, so artistically, so picturesquely cruel. Originality and a feeling of one's own dignity are achieved only through work and struggle. Suffering is the sole origin of consciousness. I drink because I wish to multiply my sufferings. I am crazy about mysterious things. Grown-up people do not know that a child can give exceedingly good advice even in the most difficult case. Being at a loss to resolve these questions, I am resolved to leave them without any resolution. The degree of a nation's civilization can be seen in the way it treats its prisoners. Drive nature out of the door and it will fly in at the window. My God, a moment of bliss. Why, isn't that enough for a whole lifetime? You are told a lot about your education, but some beautiful, sacred memory, preserved since childhood, is perhaps the best education of all. Put away your gods and come and worship ours, or we will kill you and your gods. Love in action is a harsh and dreadful thing compared with love in dreams. If not reason, then the devil. Oh, I've plenty of time, my time is entirely my own. There is nothing easier than lopping off heads and nothing harder than developing ideas. I swear to you, sirs, that excessive consciousness is a disease, a genuine, absolute disease. Break what must be broken, once for all, that's all, and take the suffering on oneself. And though I suffer for you, yet it eases my heart to suffer for you. It is amazing what one ray of sunshine can do for a man. Loving someone is different from being in love with someone. You can hate someone you're in love with. Love a man, even in his sin, for that love is a likeness of the divine love, and is the summit of love on earth. So long as man remains free, he strives for nothing so incessantly and so painfully as to find someone to worship. Don't let us forget that the causes of human actions are usually immeasurably more complex and varied than our subsequent explanations of them. Speak of a wolf and you see his tail. I have no self-respect. But can a man of acute sensibility respect himself at all? A man is no example for a woman. It's a different thing. I've long stopped worrying about who invented whom, God man or man God. One must love life before loving its meaning, yes, and when the love of life disappears, no meaning can console us. Man is a pliable animal, a being who gets accustomed to everything. Civilization has made men, if not always more bloodthirsty, at least more viciously, more horribly bloodthirsty. Here is a commandment for you: seek happiness in sorrow. Work tirelessly. Man is bound to lie about himself. Men like to count their troubles, few calculate their happiness. Reason is the slave of passion. Hang your merit. I don't seek anyone's approbation. Only by self-respect will you compel others to respect you. What you need more than anything in life is a definite position. Above all, do not lie to yourself. They won't let me. I can't be good. We always imagine eternity as something beyond our conception, something vast, vast. But why must it be vast? Faith does not, in the realist, spring from the miracle but the miracle from the faith. Bad people are to be found everywhere, but even among the worst there may be something good. I do not rebel against my God, I simply do not accept his world. For a woman, all resurrection, all salvation, from whatever perdition, lies in love. In fact, it is her only way to it. It is a law of nature that every decent man on earth is bound to be a coward and a slave. Civilization merely develops man's capacity for a greater variety of sensations, and, absolutely nothing else. What is hell? The suffering that comes from the consciousness that one is no longer able to love. Everywhere I am the object of an unbelievable esteem, the interest in me is, quite simply, tremendous. The more I love humanity in general, the less I love men in particular. The man who lies to himself and listens to his own lie comes to such a pass that he cannot distinguish the truth within him. We are all happy if we but knew it. Men do not accept their prophets and slay them, but they love their martyrs and worship those whom they have tortured to death. The more I detest men individually, the more ardent becomes my love for humanity. If there were no God, he would have to be invented. Neither man nor nation can exist without a sublime idea. Money is coined liberty. People with new ideas, people with the faintest capacity for saying something new, are extremely few in number, extraordinarily so, in fact. They have succeeded in accumulating a greater mass of objects, but the joy in the world has grown less. It is not as a child that I believe and confess Jesus Christ. My Hosanna is born of a furnace of doubt. One must first learn to live oneself before one blames others. Just take a look around you. Blood is flowing in rivers, and in such a jolly way you'd think it was champagne. It's the great mystery of human life that old grief passes gradually into quiet tender joy. Drowning men, it is said, cling to wisps of straw. When in the course of all these thousands of years has man ever acted in accordance with his own interests? Right or wrong, it's very pleasant to break something from time to time. Sometimes we desire absolute nonsense because in our stupidity we see in this nonsense the easiest way of attaining some conjectural good. Can a man of perception respect himself at all? I am too young and I've loved you too much. I will not and cannot believe that evil is the normal condition of mankind. Perhaps a normal man is supposed to be stupid, how do we know? Perhaps it's even very beautiful. Can a man possessing consciousness ever really respect himself? Being in love doesn't mean loving. The consciousness of life is higher than life. One man doesn't believe in God at all, while the other believes in him so thoroughly that he prays as he murders men. Chance may do anything. That's always the way with fanatics. They cross themselves at the tavern and throw stones at the temple. What does reason know? Reason only knows what it has succeeded in learning. I have a plan to go mad. Forgive me, for my love, for ruining you with my love. Hold your tongue, you won't understand anything. If there is no God, then I am God. There are chance meetings with strangers that interest us from the first moment, before a word is spoken. It's in despair that you find the sharpest pleasures, particularly when you are most acutely aware of the hopelessness of your position. Man grows used to everything, the scoundrel. If God does not exist, everything is permitted. How good life is when one does something good and just. A fool with a heart and no sense is just as unhappy as a fool with sense and no heart. How many ideas have there been in the history of men which were unthinkable 10 years before they appeared? I cannot truly imagine a truly great person who hasn't suffered. They were like two enemies in love with one another. Man is stupid, phenomenally stupid. After all, bluff and real emotion exist so easily side by side. Although your mind works, your heart is darkened with depravity, and without a pure heart there can be no complete and true consciousness. Woe to the man who offends a small child. Viper will eat viper, and it would serve them both right. There is no object on earth which cannot be looked at from a cosmic point of view. Love the animals. God has given them the rudiments of thought and joy untroubled. Walking along the crowded row he met the one he used to know. It's in the homes of spiteful old widows that one finds such cleanliness. Russians alone are able to combine so many opposites in themselves at one and the same time. In order to love simply, it is necessary to know how to show love. The man who has a conscience suffers whilst acknowledging his sin. That is his punishment. They have this social justification for every nasty thing they do. In most cases, people, even wicked people, are far more naive and simple-hearted than one generally assumes. And so are we. I am alone, I thought, and they are everybody. The absurd is only too necessary on earth. The world stands on absurdities. There is no explaining anything by reasoning, and so it is useless to reason. In summer, intolerable closeness; in winter, unendurable cold. All the floors were rotten. Filth on the floors an inch thick, one could slip and fall. I am strongly convinced that not only too much consciousness but even any consciousness at all is a sickness. All the utopias will come to pass only when we grow wings and all people are converted into angels. One could never judge a man without seeing him close, for oneself. If he has a conscience he will suffer for his mistake. That will be his punishment as well as the prison. Love life more than the meaning of it. The world stands on absurdities, and without them perhaps nothing at all would happen. Humiliate the reason and distort the soul. Psychology lures even most serious people into romancing, and quite unconsciously. The meanest and most hateful thing about money is that it even gives one talent. We have all lost touch with life, we all limp, each to a greater or lesser degree.